Well, good morning, everybody. I thought I'd start you off today by looking just back at the last weekend's worth of total precipitation here as measured by the MRMS system. As we look back on it, some of this was snow here in the upper Midwest. We did have some stronger storms that kind of rolled through parts of the south and southeast, which continued to press off into the southeast later on this afternoon. And we've noticed that most of the way that the Pacific jet has been hitting the west coast has been primarily targeting the Pacific Northwest. And that's going to be a critical part of this upcoming forecast. But I did want to show you the snowfall from the weekend here. We did add more to the Cascades and parts of the Northern Rockies, including a bit more snow here, 6 to 10 inches into parts of the Colorado Rockies. But notice across parts of the Red River Valley of the North, going through northern Minnesota, and then into northern Wisconsin, a good chunk here, picking up 6 to 8 inches of snow just in this past weekend. I mentioned the severe weather side of things. I did want to show you the total number of reports at 111 last night as that front sagged to the south. A lot of these were hail. These storms were very capable of producing some quite large hail stretching from Texas through parts of Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and hitting parts of Alabama as well, including Tennessee and Kentucky. So pretty rough go of the thunderstorm behavior there last night. And in a few minutes, I want to talk to you about what I think this April timeframe is going to look like in terms of severe weather, given how much we've already seen in the month of March, which again we talked about on Friday. But we need to bring this back to a discussion about precipitation, where it has been and where it has not been. Because in the month of March, drought has continued to expand in parts of the Dakotas and Kansas. We've had a drier swath that's extended at times from parts of Texas into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and southern Illinois, despite having some rain in this area over the weekend from those storms. But take a look over here at this side of the Ohio Valley, getting up against the Appalachian Mountains, Pennsylvania. You can see a very, very dry stretch, and this kind of mimics a region a year ago that we saw such dry weather tucked away into this region. Now, out west, this has certainly been one of the wetter, historically, we're in the top half of the distribution in terms of precipitation for the month of March, and we do have more that is coming for the western United States before this month is over. But we'll talk more about that a bit in a minute. Take note, though, of what has been recovered here in the Midwest, especially in the state of Iowa. This has been a region that March has been a bit more generous than normal in terms of precipitation, and it has been needed given the lack of subsurface soil moisture. Also, we do want to point out how the southern half of Florida is progressively drier, and this is just something of concern as we press forward, given that we've seen some fire activity down here as well. Okay, let's take a look at some satellite data. This is from yesterday as the system kind of rolled through, and you can see some of the storms really pop here on the frontal boundary. They're stretched all the way back into parts of Kansas. But as I was watching the satellite imagery yesterday, a couple of things just jumped out at me I wanted to show you here. First, down into Texas, it's Colorado. I'm starting Colorado, sorry. It was kind of fun to watch the wave clouds move over the top of the mountains here. These particular waves are restored by gravity, and their shape, the wave packet, everything just moves as a function of the wind, of course. It does move orthogonal to the wind, but it's just neat to see those waves. I could look at those things all day long. But now, back to Texas. There was another dust storm. You can see it right here, pressing its way toward the south and east. So that is a bit different. Some of the bigger ones we've seen lately have been blowing out of Texas all the way to the Midwest. But we do need to talk just a bit more about this. By the way, beautiful supercell thunderstorm right here, just blowing up on the frontal boundary, sagging farther to the south. By the way, that frontal boundary, just to show it to you before I get into this overall water picture, looks something like this. So we can see the much cooler air that is now sagged into the central United States, north to south here behind this front that's just lingering and pushing its way into the southeast. Okay, so kind of bigger news. Let's get a refresh. There we go. This is one of the more important maps I get to show you this week. We do have, coming into a broad part of Texas, multiple chances of getting some wet weather in there. Now, the modeled agreement here is very poor on where the heaviest precipitation is going to be. And I'll be honest with you, the WPC often looks like a blend of things, right? You see how smooth the precipitation field is? It often doesn't look like that when it's all said and done, but I still like what the WPC offers, overall. What will be very critical to watch is how far is the northern extent of these wetter conditions over the next 7 days. Because if we fail to get them farther into Texas, we just push this particular region, deeper and deeper into drought. Now, why this is so important is take a look at our most recent soil moisture map. This is a map made by NASA for this morning, and what it shows is, yes, we have wet soils in through this area, and we've seen a return toward normal here. but there's a broad area here and in the northern plains that remain dry. Parts of the southeast up to the mid-Atlantic still have very dry soils. Florida has very dry soils. So when I show you that map and you're looking at getting some decent moisture into this area, this is desperately needed on the whole for these pockets that have been so very dry as of late. Now, the other side of this story that we need to talk about is temperatures, because even with incoming moisture, if it gets windy and if it gets hot, then we have to remember that we evaporate a lot of that moisture. So for the next 5 days, much of the plain's going to be going over very, very warm. I'm heading to Kearney, Nebraska here in a little while this morning, and I'll be up in Minnesota following this, and it's still going to be quite mild here, quite mild throughout the Four Corner States, the Southwest. That's your next 5 days. That's day 5 through 10. This was that risk we kind of talked about heading into the, this pocket of North America with colder weather to start the month of April. I'll show you your latest frost map here in just a few minutes, but I still, we're still trying to understand if there is a chance at returning significant cold air. I mean, not just the shot of cold air like I showed you a moment ago with this, but I'm talking about much more sustained 5, 6, 7 day risk of being much below average in terms of temperatures, because I did just watching on Twitter over the weekend. I mean, I had guys in Illinois and Indiana tweeting out how they're already planting corn and soybeans given these warm conditions that we've seen, because you look out there to the 15-day forecast and you continue to see that. And that's pushing that frost line in the soil way far to the north here, allowing a lot of these folks to get after it. But there's something to be said about this map. Whenever we're looking out here, and now again, we're April 3rd to April 8th, and we start to see a cooler, trend in the west and such warm conditions here, this just starts me thinking about the presence of, large southeastern ridges and deeper western troughs. And so we have to have a discussion in a few minutes about what this could mean in terms of severe weather threat, not only here, but where it has been so much this spring, which has been to the east. Okay, so that is going to be an important part of what we're going to get into in just a few moments here. But bigger picture, over the next 14 days, where do I continue to see these drier risks? It's here and here. So our storm systems enter in the west. They're blowing up farther to the east. We've got wetter corridors here, which is where most of our severe weather has been. Wetter on the Great Lakes, wetter into the northeast, but these pockets of dryness are not, they just continue to concern me. And so the newest 14-day outlook next 2 weeks shows more moisture coming into California, the west coast. We continue to keep the Great Lakes states wetter, the Mid-South wetter, the Ohio Valley wetter, but just these regions continue to seem to miss in the near-term model forecasts. And why it's important is just look back at the last 14 days. I mean, that's been our story. That's why I showed you that soil moisture map. That's why I showed you the importance of getting these rains in the near term, but trying to understand where that northern edge is going to be over the next week or so. So, here we go. So that's kind of top of mind for me as we go forward into this forecast. The other big piece is this. The Pacific jet has reoriented itself back toward more zonal flow with the split. So what am I talking about? Leaves Japan, comes to Hawaii, and does its common split. We saw this a lot in December, January, and February. In this particular split, we have questions about how long it's going to last. And there's some interesting stuff going on in some of the models that we just need to talk about here, okay? Now, Texas, watch out for that wave. That's the one that later on this week is going to be coming through, increasing your chances of rain that you just saw in the maps I've been showing. So we'll keep a close eye on that. But overall, will this jet stream pattern return to something that is much more active in the month of April? So here we go. This is a view of the jet stream for the next 10 days, looking across the North Pacific Ocean. And there it is. So you can see the jet extension and the split. That's what you just saw on that wind map. Now, what I'm most interested in seeing here, okay, is as we go through this week, this is now Tuesday into Wednesday, we do see a deep low that is coming into the Pacific Northwest. We need to talk about the severe weather threat of this on day 3. I'll show you that in a few moments. But about the time that gets there, you see this little feature here? That's the low that I showed you was near Hawaii now. That's going to be coming into Texas, increasing their chances for rain. But to be honest, as I'm keeping an eye on these two things, this is what's really important in the flow. Look at that. We've now taken the jet stream. We're just 90 hours out and force a large split in the flow here across the Pacific Ocean. And when we split the flow here, this tends to mean wetter conditions for the West and a more active go of it across the U.S. So let me show you that. This is this Thursday, Friday, and then getting into Saturday. Now, why this is so important is we end up cutting off a low to the south and get a wave break over the top. And that tends to drive flow around and just hammer the western United States. When are we in time? This is Saturday. Now, as that begins to take shape in the west, look at the ridge opening up here. Much more mild conditions coming in to the U.S. And again, the more mild air we deliver in the month of, March now into April, the better the chances are of opening up a severe weather corridor to plow through there at some point. But this is this large wave-breaking event on Saturday, March 29th. There it is. See how it kind of crashes over the top, the cutoff low to the south. So what does it give us? That. And that's why these week 2 forecasts for California look so wet right now. So then we get out here, and we're going to just question, getting into early April, does this trough that's now sitting here because of this wave break event with the cutoff low north and west to Hawaii drive flow in here to kick off storm systems and increase our severe weather threat at that time? These are all the big questions, because we talk about severe weather. It's March, April, May. June, it's farther to the north. July, it's MCS season. August, we're going to start talking about hurricanes. It just progresses each month, one after another, with a new severe weather threat. So that's it. See that picture right there is what I want you to get. Okay, so let's walk through it now. Early this morning, this is our all hazards weather map. Nice to see something not so busy. We do have some stronger winds north. Winter weather advisories still stretch across the parts of the Great Lakes into the northeast. But it is good to see this map, which is the next 60 hours of maximum cumulative wind gusts, not producing 50 to 80 mile an hour winds here where it's been for so long. We are still watching very strong winds in Montana, coming down parts of the Front Range, some stronger winds in parts of the northeast. But this is a much more calm map than I've shown you in quite some time. Let's go over to the severe weather outlook. Today, watch the Gulf Coast. Not too much of a threat tomorrow on the 25th, but into the 26th. Take a look at what's going on here in the northwest. Keep that in the back of your mind, because I want to show you here. Let's refresh this. There we go. I want to show you the latest high-res NAM forecast. So throughout the morning hours, the front crosses the southeast. We see snow showers around the Great Lakes and into interior parts of the northeast, but mostly rain along the coast here. Then you're going to see on the back side of this, right in through here, there is this chance of getting a little squeeze in the atmosphere to produce some precip. See that? So this is now getting into the overnight hours tonight. Watch out for some just leftover lingering showers in this area. Very hit or miss. Okay, into Tuesday morning. That continues to wrap around the deeper trough. So there it is, pushing up against the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina and Virginia. And then we just pay attention to how this takes shape by Wednesday and very into the day on Wednesday, getting toward Thursday. So at that time, okay, Red River Valley, keep an eye out, but watch this system over here coming on shore. Now, the high-res NAM, as you know, only runs out 60 hours, so we got to flip over to our longer-range models, which is the GFS versus the European. Okay, so we've taken a look so far through here. There it is. That's early Tuesday through late Tuesday afternoon and evening. There's the rain. Some snow against the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, now watch. This is now Wednesday getting into Wednesday night, Thursday. And what we're going to keep an eye on is this system, very potent, coming in, living just offshore, but just understand the risk of thunderstorms here in the northwest. While that's going on, we do see our upper level wave that was over by Hawaii. It's starting to emerge down here into Texas. So this is the beginning of the wetter weather in Texas. So this is now Thursday night, getting into Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and evening. Now, what we're going to be watching as we slide into this weekend is, there's a major warm-up coming, right? We've talked about that a moment ago. This next storm system, it is in both models. Timing and location's a little different, but where are we in time? This is Saturday the 29th. That we do need to be aware of the risk of severe storms getting out that far. And then watch the back side of this low here. Okay, so look at this moisture coming out of Wyoming into Nebraska, Iowa. We still need a whole lot more here. Eastern Kansas, again, severe weather to the south. Again, this is Saturday night, getting into Sunday. Some of the models are attempting to flip over on the back side of this heavier snows. Take a look at the difference between the European and the GFS. So then that system goes through. Now, the GFS has a kicker wave on the backside that comes through, opening up another severe weather corridor here on Sunday night. And we can see something similar in the European model, but still more wet conditions in that area. Meanwhile, another system comes into the west. You know why, right? That's when the jet stream lines itself out and starts to target California. So watch this. As one system exits east next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday just sees repeated systems coming into the west, and they will eject, and which is why we're going into this early April time frame with some pretty active weather. All right, you saw the models comparing one another. You need to watch this all week with us, but let's get in and kind of get some of the details. I just thought we'd start on the snow side of this. Models are not settled on snow. They aren't typically in March into April, but this is the ECMWF 10-day outlook on total snow. So the second and third round hitting California harder. But take a look right through there, and then here. Ontario, heavy snows. It's actually in both models. See it? But this is the GFS outlook. Much heavier snow in the Canadian Prairie, much stronger over like the UP and Lake Superior, and weaker flow into California. So again, that is the European. This is the GFS, European GFS. Now here's the AI solution. And the AI solution is much more aggressive on the flow coming in the west. So I just wanted to show that, all right? Now if we come back over to the total precipitation side of it, just take a look at this. We're just going to run through the European model. That's through Tuesday into Wednesday. Thursday, Friday. Now Thursday and Friday is where we start to pick up the moisture into Texas. See it? Getting up there into Saturday. Now you're going to watch this whole quarter open up on Saturday night into Sunday. There it is. That's that first big system. Now while that's hitting possibly with severe weather here, I'll show you that in a moment, take a look at what's going on the west coast. Next system enters. You see how it just slides down the coast along the west coast? And then getting out there to Tuesday, April 1st, Wednesday, April 2nd, that's when we start to see that next system emerge. Now, since I mentioned the severe weather side of it, I do want to show you that the Storm Prediction Center for this Saturday has identified parts of, Arkansas, Missouri, maybe into western Illinois, but Kansas and Oklahoma. That's day 6. And day 7, they have a much larger area here. This would be Sunday into early Monday. So we just need to know that they're watching this weekend pretty closely. Okay, we'll keep an eye on that all week long. Okay, back to precipitation though. The model differences are important. Now the map in the background isn't going to move. It's just where the precip is. That's the next 10 days from the European. This is the GFS. I mean, look at Iowa, just an example. European going after 1 to up to maybe 3 inches, and the GFS has got under, under a half inch for most of the state. Look at the flip for Illinois. You see, that's the difference in the timing and position of these systems. And I just picked out 2 states near me. But take a look at the West Coast, too. Much different. We need to throw in the AI just for good measure. And the AI, remember, was most aggressive on the West Coast, bringing in more precip. But overall, you put it down to probabilities. This is the best chance at getting over an inch in the next 10 days. Okay? If we look at those drier spots, the model run should update here. Oh, it didn't. This is where we have our drier risks under a half inch. And here's under a tenth. So I'm again looking at Florida, Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, getting into parts of western Kansas and Oklahoma. That's our driest region. Let's go back up to half inch. That's where we stay below a half inch. Okay? Now, as you look out there into week 2, the models remain aggressive. Now, you know why. I showed you the jet stream behavior in the Pacific, the big wave break event. And if we just kind of hone in on the European just as one example, this is what the week 2 forecast looks like when you compare it to average. What I'm interested in is some of the severe weather outlook for that time frame. So I'm going to go here, and just show you the latest updates from Victor Gassini's maps using the GFS ensemble. So that's week 2. And then the CFS V2 forecast. So take note that, there's increasing risks of bringing back more severe weather into the southern plains as we press into the month of April. That's his new latest week 3 forecast here. Speaking of week 3, let's go out and look at the European model, because the tail end of week 2 is still very wet for the west, drier in the plains, wet in the northeast and Great Lakes. But watch, as we just stretch this out and show you week 3, we go drier west, drier southeast. You go into week 4, which is getting us all the way out there like April 21, 22, 23. We kind of see the model loses its signal. So if we just look at the month of April by using the whole 30-day outlook, let's go to there. This is what the newest European model solution looks like. It's wetter here, mainly at the beginning of the month. There are still drier risks here and in the southeast that are showing up in the model, and we're wetter kind of curling around that. That's the newest April outlook from the from the European weeklies. Now, from the new CPC outlook, weeks 3, 4, 5 through 18. So this makes sense. We saw this coming into the European as well. We stay wet around a big section here of the Great Lakes, central and northern Corn Belt, drier in the southeast. A lot of similarities. This is the wild card. Do we return, as the website said in week 3, better chances for storms in the southern plains? We do need that to return into this area. Okay. On to temperatures. Frost map, as I promised, there it is, the next 7 days. Look at that frost moving pretty far to the north. So those guys I saw planting in Illinois and Indiana were down here. All right. And you can just kind of take a look at it around the country. And here's the max highs. Now, we know that ahead of this big system on Friday, it's going to be a warm up in the middle part of the United States. But here's Tuesday into Wednesday. Look at the cold exit east and really build warmth into the west. This is some meaningful warmth we've not seen in a while. That's Wednesday into Thursday. Look at this coming out of the plains. Friday, Saturday. Now, this is ahead of the big system coming through. There's the 29th. Cooler north, cooler west. And there's the 30th. And I'll go ahead and just show you this in a different way compared to what I showed you earlier. Here's your next 5 days. That's day 5 through 10. And here's day 10 through 15. Now, this is the surprise, right? I think it's just out there to the 8th. We had talked for a while about the risk of cooler air coming in to this region during that time. But if you end up dropping cold air to the west, that's with low pressure. You're going to end up getting, multiple rounds of strong storms coming into here in that, that week into week 2, week 3, week 4 time frame. And that's why I wanted to kind of illustrate that. But what will be interesting is if we finish the month of March kind of on this warmer kick here, I'm very interested to see how this map looks. That's the March temperature ranks. Very mild for much of the United States, save the West Coast. But we know they're going mild in the next 7 days. So just something to keep an eye on here. Okay, bigger picture on temperatures. The European model, look, I told you this on Friday. Major whiff on this, right? It had forecast much colder air into this area, and now it's gone. So we've already talked about that last week. But what's it trying to do? Mid to late April, cool things down around Easter. And I don't know if it's just kicking the can down the road or if there's something to this in this area. Same thing for the West Coast. So to start to finish this up, I'm going to show you something. I think the model is kind of fixated on the fact that the MJO is expected to stall out near phase 7. That's just west of like Indonesia, okay, getting out into the Pacific Ocean. Now we know something about phase 6 and 7. We tend to drop troughs in here and here with ridges there. Now if you just let that be a narrative on the temperature pattern, okay, warm, cold, cold, right? Kind of what you saw here. Warm, cold, cold. What about phase 7? Okay, I still see troughs of low pressure here and here with warm in the middle. So I guess the model is just picking up on this. But I cannot just say, oh yeah, it's going to be all MJO phase 6, 7. That's not a strong signal for me. And honestly, the deepest convection's over here near the maritime continent right now, north of Australia. I mean, have you seen Queensland's forecast lately? It's extremely wet in northeastern Australia. So that doesn't fit perfectly with this narrative. So I'm just going to tell you, while we see it in the model, I'm not settled on this risk of cold air into this area, substantial cold air in this area. We've seen it miss multiple times as we went through the month of March. Okay, last couple things to finish up with. I show you this usually once or twice a month. We're out of all of our new long-range models like the ECMWF, the NMME, and the CPC forecast, plus the IRI. We did all those last week, but I want to show you the new CFSV2. And we're just kind of looking out here, April, May, June, at the precipitation anomalies from this model. There's May, June, July, and June, July, August. Now, we know that this is a model that's aggressive on trying to bring in dry conditions into the central U.S. Western Corn Belt for summer. And you can see it again here. It's also trying to crank up some sort of southwestern monsoon in late summer. We're going to be talking about the hurricane forecast once we get into April, so let's just leave it at that. But I wanted to show you the model just so you have something to look at here for this longer range, knowing that this is one of our more aggressive models I'm bringing in this dryness here come July, August, September. So where we need to finish, though, is just a bit on South America. And let's go back up here. We know that we were expecting better rains to get into this dry spot. There's the dryness, but that was better rains as that front progressed farther to the north into eastern Brazil. So for the last 7 days, we've been a bit drier in Argentina, a bit drier in Rio Grande do Sul, drier in through here, but not problematically so. And if we look at the forecast over the next 7 days, that front continues to sit in this particular area while Argentina sees quite a bit more precip. There's the 10-day outlook. And then here's week 2. Watch this carefully to see if we start to see a bit of a drying trend here as we go farther into the month of April. That's been a narrative I've had for a while with this forecast. But I'm going to stop it there, just kind of let you know what's going on in South America briefly, and we'll just talk again tomorrow. I appreciate your attention. Thanks.